Welcome to User Friendly 2.0 with host Bill Sickens, Technology Architect.
And this is User Friendly 2.0. I am your host, Bill Sickens. Welcome to this week's show. Bill, Gretchen, welcome.
Hello.
Hello there.
So how are you guys doing today?
Doing all right.
So.
Yeah, know the feeling there myself.
I can't always be happy, Cherry.
Well, you don't have to always be happy, Cherry. It's and I do want to say one thing. It's been a year now since our co-producer Molly Bell left us, and I think it's important to remember that because she was so much a part of this show. In addition, Bill, to being your wife, was with us since the beginning. So just a moment to think of Molly. All right, what do we have in the news today?
All right. United and Delta become latest airlines to ban humanoid robots from all flights.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting story, and they're actually doing this after Southwest was the first airline to do this. Being reported on a site called Simply Flying. This was written by Jack McCarthy. And basically what's happening here is they're setting up a standard that makes humanoid-shaped robots separate from other electronic devices that you might take on a plane. Now, as to the reason why you would do this misses me a little bit. The statements from the airlines have included things like, well, it's specialty equipment, the battery packs, and various other things like that. However, there are any other electronic devices that also could have these specific problems, and they are not banned.
Are they afraid that they're going to go Terminator on the airplane?
Well, there's always that. They might do it if they're not allowed to fly. Although, if I was, a sentient humanoid robot, I just want a jetpack built in. But that's, legacy planes and all of that. So the one thing that's interesting about it is they're saying this is a temporary ban, Delta specifically. So that does leave the door open to them reversing this in the future. I mean, I just, welcome to the future, right? I just get this vision of getting on a plane and half the people on the plane are humanoid robots. And it's like, no wonder I couldn't get my seat.
Talking about robots, Curiosity Mars rover inspects cracked wheel.
So this is an interesting thing. So Curiosity made touchdown on August 5th of 2012. And has been operating on Mars ever since. And yes, the Martian environment is very hazardous and can cause electronics to break down. In fact, this robot still operating in of itself is kind of cool. But they have submitted some images that are interesting looking at this, where the tires on the robot are starting to just look like they're caving in on themselves. Now, the one thing that I will say, obviously, these are two different technologies. They're both called tires, but they're very different. But if I had tires on my car for 15 years, I'd probably need to replace them too. It's just a little easier for me to go to the tire shop here than it would be on Mars. So, you have to continue working with what you have. The robot's still operating, however. It does go slower because of these problems. And like I say, there isn't really a way to fix it. So it is, I think, a testament to the ingenuity of the NASA engineers that this is even still running this far after, but also with those kind of problems.
Agreed. All right. Ryan Reynolds, Comic-Con surprise backfires as fans call appearance pure desperation.
Yeah, so this, I think we fall under the category of wah a little bit.
Yeah.
Blast is reporting this. Yahoo Entertainment, Kelly Coffrey wrote this. And at the International Comic-Con in San Diego, Ryan Reynolds made an appearance. Now, reading through and looking at what happened there, I thought this was kind of cool. He was doing a cosplay of Deadpool. He plays Deadpool for anyone that doesn't know. And he was doing a cosplay of Deadpool in denim, which was kind of interesting. I was walking around and people were looking at it. It's kind of a cool, twist on it, not knowing who he was. And afterwards, he appeared at a panel and some other things like that. And the complaints that are coming from this are kind of interesting because it doesn't sound like he did anything per se at the Comic-Con that would be considered something that I would think would be worth complaining about. But in a bigger perspective, Marvel and Deadpool, a lot of the fans are saying that they're having fatigue not only with this actor but with the franchise itself. And Deadpool will be making an appearance in the next Marvel superhero movie coming up. So, again, at the end of the day, everybody is certainly entitled to their opinion, but that's why there was a quote controversy about this. And again, if you don't like his sarcastic style, then don't watch Deadpool.
Yeah.
You have that choice, right?
Yeah.
I don't get this complaint. This is just, especially calling it pure desperation. It's Ryan Reynolds. He does what he wants.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I've also watched the video. I watched the video of him interacting with the people who were on the stage, the Marvel actors, and I kind of looked like maybe it was planned, that it was supposed to happen, and it was just fun banter.
Well, and a lot of people that do this kind of stuff, that play characters, actually do go to Comic-Cons as their character without being known. What's his name from? Jeremy did that helmet for that panel he did.
Oh, the helmet acting.
The Mandalorian.
You're not talking about Pascal, are you?
No, he did that show where they test Mythbusters.
Oh,
okay. Yes. Okay. You're talking about oh my God, I can't.
Okay, so just to sum this up for our listeners,
he's a really nice guy. He's the Mythbusters guy.
Yeah.
Adam Savage.
Adam Savage.
Yeah.
And so what's going on here, just for everybody on this little aside, Jeremy, our past host, he did a lot with cosplay. Boy, did he do a lot with cosplay. Mm-hmm. And the San Diego Comic-Con was having an event where you could basically build your own helmet. And it was a thing that they were doing that Savage was involved in and that type of a thing, which was really a cool project. So that's what that goes to. And
there's also this. I had I'm not going to say his name. I had an actor who wanted to go to Comic-Con and not be noticed. And I was going to build him a costume outside of the Actors Costumers Guild, because he was worried that they might, let go of the secret. And so it's not unknown that actors will do that. So yeah,
Adam Savage, he goes as like, when is an astronaut. He's done a couple others that he's gone as.
It went as a giant big round thing that was, I don't know what that creature was, but I think it's from a manga. Is it a manga?
I think so.
I don't know. It's big, giant, round, fluffy looking thing. So. Oh.
All right. Here's a different story. What is a fire cloud, and how have they worsened wildfires in Europe?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that's happening, and it's something good to know about. The Guardian reported this. Katie Lamb wrote it. And basically what's been going on is they've been having just a massive heat wave in most of Europe for most of the summer. And in some cases, temperatures hitting 40 degrees Celsius, which is about 105 Fahrenheit, which is very, very hot for that area. Coupled with the fact that most of the forested areas have not received any kind of rain since May, this sets up a setting for disaster, basically. And that's kind of what's happening and creating forest fires. So while they're not the only part in the world that's been suffering from this, and this is not a new phenomenon in recent years due to climate change. What is happening is something called a fire cloud, like you said in the headline of the article here. And basically what that is that fires, when they get big enough, can produce their own weather. And it'll create a cloud, it will create wind, and this can cause a lot of problems because the wind can push the fire faster, that type of a thing. And this is worsening in Europe, mainly because of the fact that the heat wave there is somewhat unprecedented. To have it for this long, this much, with as little rain as they've had. Yeah. And they're seeing this happening more and more. Now, again, this is not unique to Europe. On the West Coast here, we have fires that can certainly produce this type of thing. And it's something that could happen anywhere. There's a big fire, really.
We've had tornadoes.
Fire tornadoes, yeah.
I mean, I guess the biggest problem is they have no infrastructure really for dealing with massive fires, do they?
Yeah. Outside of maybe Greece, where they've had this a lot more in the past in that area, this is a new thing. But we're starting to see areas that are historic, like Germany's Black Forest, which they think might be wiped out in the next 10 years from all these forest fires, that kind of a thing.
Oh, dear.
And it is not a guarantee that'll happen. Of course, we hope it doesn't, but it is definitely a problem. And in the past, we've seen them in the United States side, California in 2022, when they had the really big fires there. Pyrocumulonimbus clouds. Okay, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we'll go with PyroCB. That's the shortening for it. But Bill, like you say, it's a new situation in France where this is specifically coming out of that they just don't have the infrastructure to deal with it, simply because they haven't had to, you know.
Yeah.
And most of the areas in these parts of the world are just now getting air conditioning because it used to not be that hot. So this is a symptom of that problem, and is definitely something. And it's something interesting from this too, is this actually could eventually have the opposite effect, because they're starting to see the currents in the Atlantic Ocean that bring the heat up from the equator to the north are starting to slow down. In fact, there's a dead zone now that appeared this last winter where it had stopped. And if that system completely breaks down, we have the opposite. There'd be no heat coming up, so Europe would then become, a frozen area for much of the year, kind of like maybe Alaska, that kind of a climate. So these things are always quite damaging. But yeah, right now we're having one side of the coin, and that's where, this argument comes up. Climate change, global warming was not a good name for that. It is climate change, and what can happen here is it's not necessarily warming. It can cause all kinds of other problems too, as we're starting to see.
Maybe we should call it climate chaos.
Climate chaos would probably be a good name for it. And and the scary thing about it is there's not really a solution in politics and stuff. There's things where, okay, we're going to do environmental policy, we're not going to do environmental policy. The one thing about it is in a lot of ways it doesn't matter. It'd be better to do things to help the environment. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but we're to a point now that there's not a whole lot we can do. What's going to happen is going to happen. And even if today we stopped putting anything into the atmosphere that creates these effects, like greenhouse effect, it wouldn't matter for about 50 years. You wouldn't start to see a difference. So, it's a problem.
I still think we should stop throwing junk in the ocean.
Well, all of these things would be better. And, I'll just reference something. If we want to see where that's going to end up going, just check out Cyberpunk 2077 or Cyberpunk Red and see what the oceans are like there. Because that's about where we're headed.
Okay. Maybe this will be more fun. Anthropic introduces Claude Opus 5. So what's that about?
So this is an AI model. Claude Opus is an AI. Version 5 is the newest flagship model that they are introducing here. And this one focuses on something that's very interesting that we haven't seen before, is lowering the operating costs. So one of the things AIs, and I've said this many times, are amazing and can do a lot. I work with them on certain things like programming, but at the end of the day, they are very power hungry. And as a result, they cost a lot of money to run. There was even a story, I haven't researched it yet to see the authenticity of it, but it seems to be out there that's being reported that certain data centers are causing problems in the power grid in an entire half of the United States in some cases, especially when we add in the heat and everything else. And again, what is power hungry is running AI. And to fix that, in certain cases, like Microsoft has actually bought a nuclear power plant to run their data center, which would take it off the primary grid, which would be a way to solve that problem. But the thing of it is looking at doing this from a standpoint of lowering the operating costs, which would mean lowering the amount of electricity being used and some other things due to the programming, is also another solution that even makes more sense. And that's kind of where this is headed. Now, Claude Opus is a competitor, according to some sources, to ChatGPT. I did ask ChatGPT about it, and ChatGPT told me not to worry, that it wouldn't be able to compete. So, yeah, I think we're okay on that front.
Okay.
So Viking has been on Mars for 50 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. We just talked about Curiosity a little bit here ago. But Viking is definitely one that is in the books and very well should be. There's actually 2 Viking landers that have gone out. The first one landed on July 20th of 1976. So that is, 50 years ago now. And the second one just a little bit after that. And since then, we have been getting images from Mars that's kind of cool. And if you think about how much technology has changed in 50 years, and gives you an idea of what they were working with when these would have been launched. It's like the Voyager spacecraft and things. It's amazing that these machines were built so well and engineered so well that they're still operating. And yes, there's some limitations, but my goodness, any computer I have that's 50 years old, I'm having to rebuild if I want the thing to work again. Certainly not on another planet or out beyond the solar system. Although maybe Commodore 64, but outside of that. So,
I mean, yeah, it is a comparison to think that, Raspberry Pi or your cell phone is more powerful than most of the landers and things that we have in space that have been there for a while.
How about all?
Yeah.
Yeah. You look at it, just a little aside on
and
this.
Your digital wristwatch had more computing power than the stuff they used to shoot us up to the moon.
Yeah. And that is so true. And it's interesting because when you think about it from that standpoint, this is something that's always bugged me somehow is in restoring retro computers like Commodore, Atari, and all these kind of things, you can't get the specialty chips anymore. They're just not available. And, because it's been so long. So there's a lot of projects that are designed to replace these missing components. Now, a Raspberry Pi, for anybody that may not have heard of this, is a small computer, a microcontroller that can do a lot of different things and it can even run Windows. So it's a pretty decent little computer. So they use these to replace like the sound chip on the Commodore 64. So you're replacing the sound chip because you can't get the original one with a computer that's something like 10,000 times the processing capability of the Commodore 64 you're putting it in just to get the sound to work. I don't know. There's something to me that's weird about that a little bit, but
well, some of those old chips, it was the process or the way that they were made the sound very unique.
Yes, and it did, and it absolutely did, and it's very hard to replicate. In fact, speaking of this, the new Commodore 64 ones that have come out, the updated version, which are actually very well done for something that's reproducing the original, still isn't exactly the same. And it's because you can't get it spot on identical. And Bill, what you're saying is exactly right. And it's not just sound, it's the way the video works on some of these things. It's like solid state vacuum tubes, because we can't get vacuum tubes for old radios and televisions. They can make it work that way, but it doesn't work the same. And you can tell there's a difference.
All right. George Clooney, Tom Hanks, and Meryl Streep back new human consent standard for AI licensing. So what's this about?
So it's being reported by The Verge. Emma Roth wrote this, and basically this addresses a question that's been ongoing. And actor strike with SAG a few years ago was based on this type of a thing. And what it comes down to is a simple question: who owns your digital self? So what this is referring to is specific things, and we've heard about this in the news a little bit, but your face, your voice, your name, your style, your characters, your brand. With generative AI, most if not all of that can be reproduced now. So what this is, human consent standard, is the ability for people to set the terms of how AI systems can use their likeness and their creative works, and setting that down as a formal situation where you would authorize or not authorize certain things. So that's what that's talking about. And as something, it's something that should be addressed. It's something, frankly, that should have been addressed for, I would think a couple of years ago. But, and coming out of that is a copyright license that machines can understand, or even a digital no trespassing sign to kind of sum it up that way.
Microsoft escalates the AI security race with Project Perception and a new in-house model.
So this is being widely reported and is something that a lot of our listeners sent in. Thank you for that. And I know, Gretchen, you found this in the news. I'm going to go with the reporting from GeekWire, but it's on a lot of different places. Todd Bishop wrote this specific article. And basically what's going on here is Microsoft is creating an AI model, or actually more accurately, a couple of AI models to deal with security. So this isn't like a model where you go on like ChatGPT where you can talk to it, Gemini, something like that. It's something that's actually being designed to create a situation to secure things in the AI age. So back at one time, you had a group of hackers that, again, for whatever reason, are in black cloaks in a back room looking at screens, scenes from the Matrix. That's obviously how a hacker works, right? But anyway, but what's happening now with AI is AI can be used to scan all of the vulnerabilities of a network or look at many different things that an individual hacker or group of hackers would never be able to do in a timely fashion. So in order to fight that, you need AI to be able to fight it. So you're fighting AI with AI in a sense there. And Microsoft is putting together several teams here. They're doing this by colors because it's Microsoft and that's the way they seem to do things, where red team identifies the attacks, the blue team will triage, and the green team will fix and remediate. And while humans are involved in these things, the agents, quote unquote, are AI with a specific focus on these different kind of categories. So it'll be interesting to see where this ends up going. But I think formalizing this is a good thing. And since Microsoft does not have a great record of getting their AIs to be used by anyone, having a system like this that runs on the back end is probably a good thing for Microsoft to focus on, because it is something that will fit something that we need, and is a situation that, like their data centers and things, actually probably would get some market share for them. All right, so let's jump on to another topic that I like to talk about, and that's Cyberhawk. And Gretchen, I know you have a question to put out here, but first of all, give us an update on how things are going.
Well, I'm working on the second novel, and I'm in the editing process, the final editing process. And yeah, woohoo! And so I'd like to ask our listeners, those who have read the first book, Rise of Heroes, what section of the book would you like me to read? And that's it.
Okay, so what are you doing? Let's talk about why you're reading it.
We're going to put it on the Cyberhawk website, and I will read that section for our fans.
So basically what we need you to do is let us know what part of the book you would like to hear the author read, hear Gretchen read. And send us your suggestions on that, userfriendly.show. Go to ask a question, and that's where you can send it in. So I think that's kind of cool, Gretchen. We'll have to see what we come up with here. I have a few ideas.
And I have another friend who's offered theirs, so we're going to put them all together and see, which ones we'll use. Probably pick about 2 or 3.
So I think that sounds good, and I think this is going to be a fun little project to do. I have to say, while you're in the final editing process, I'm in the final reading process of Unveiled Villains, which is the next book. And boy, is it intense in some places. It is well done.
I hope.
I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I'm reading through it going, okay, with villains, you have some of the darker side of things and some stuff that's downright creepy. And boy, do you get your point across, Gretchen. Oh, no question about that. But I've been having fun reading the new book. I think you got another winner on your hands there.
I hope so. I hope everybody enjoys it.
So, for anybody that is listening that hasn't checked it out, cyberhawkheroes.com is the website to go to. The books are available through there. You can get them there. You can get them on Amazon and most other locations that sell books, and it is definitely worth checking out. This is User Friendly 2.0. We'll be back after the break.
Have you seen him? He's from the future. He's got a really big computer, and he uses it every day, and he uses it in every way. What's he use it for? I'm not that sure, because it uses future technology.
Welcome back. This is User Friendly 2.0. Check out our website at userfriendly.show. That's where you send your questions, your comments, and everything else. We want to hear from you, because that's how we do our programming. So check it out, userfriendly.show. And on that, a quick programming note, we originally were planned to do Technology of Ukraine this week. We are going to be doing that in the near future here. I will keep you updated on that. We had a little technical problem with the interview and an air raid. We'll explain it when we get to that episode. So anyway, we're not forgetting about it. It is coming up. It's just not going to be this week as originally scheduled. So what we are doing this week in this part of the show is we're going to be answering your questions on cord cutting and television and some other things like that. We've talked about bits and pieces of this, and we did a deep dive on this, I think, about 2 years ago. So we're going to update you a little bit by answering your questions. So just to kind of give a summary of where we are with this and what's going on here, is cord cutting refers to the idea that people are leaving traditional cable television, dish network, these type of things behind, and using over the top, which is what they refer to as internet streaming video, things like Netflix and whatnot, and how the general audience is migrating to that. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into your questions.
How has streaming matured?
So when this started out, a little company called Netflix put together this idea of, in addition to sending us DVDs in the mail with a subscription, that you could watch television over the internet. That's where all of this started. And fast forward to 2026, that's pretty much the way that you do it. So in this day and age, it's no longer a revolution. It's just simply how millions of people watch television. And really what it comes down to is not whether people are cutting the cord anymore, but what are they replacing it with? And what we're looking at is some of the things that have happened in the past that caused cable television to not be very popular are starting to creep in to streaming.
All right. We got rid of bundles. Are they coming back?
And that would be why there are problems that are coming from cable television. So if you remember, for a very long time, you had the Great Bundle, which was generally your internet connection, some kind of a cable television subscription of whatever that might be, and your telephone. And so telephone, internet, and cable television. And if you got all three of these things from your cable company, you got a reasonably good deal. If you didn't, then it cost a lot more. And that was what you were locked into. The problem with that is this with these kind of bundles, basically you didn't get to choose what you subscribe to. Your cable TV system was whatever channels they decided to provide, whether you liked them or not, you still had to pay for them. Yeah. And when streaming first started, that gave us a lot of choice. But we are starting to see bundles again, although it is a little bit different. Even with the way they're doing it now, we still have a lot more control over what we originally had. So what we're seeing is Disney bundles, Warner bundles, cable companies bundling streaming, which is an interesting thing because if you still are using cable TV services, you now get streaming through your box, and that's bundled in with the service. Wireless carriers are including streaming, and even some internet providers now include several services together. So it's kind of history repeating itself, although we definitely still have more flexibility than we did.
It was said live television was dead due to streaming. Is this true?
The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated, I think would be a good thing to apply here. Yes, this was something that over-the-air television was going to be, something of the past because of streaming services. But people still want live programming, sports, breaking news, weather, election coverage, community events, emergency information, that type of a thing are all handled through live television. And normally what you can do is you can either get live television through a streaming service like Hulu TV or one of those type of things, or you can do what I do because they charge a lot for these things, is put an antenna on the roof and get a box so that you can stream the live television from your antenna into your televisions in your house. And outside of the cost of the equipment, that doesn't cost you anything. So broadcast television is still very much a thing, and it does not look like it's dying anytime soon.
What is next gen television?
We've talked a little bit about this on the show. Next gen television, also known more formally as ATSC 3.0. ATSC 1.0 is the standard we use for high definition television today. So they're wanting to upgrade this standard, and in great fashion of upgrading things, we've skipped version 2 to go straight into version 3. And version 3 is more designed around internet technologies than simply broadcasting, of which it is part of it. So what this brings is better reception, which is a little bit subjective. I have both here, and I'm trying to decide if I agree with that. It has the capability to do 4K, although I'm not aware of any broadcast television that's actually broadcasting in 4K right now. There might be, but I just haven't been able to find them. HDR, high definition response, Dolby Atmos audio. This is kind of a cool thing. And then stuff like interactive applications, data casting, mobile reception, improved emergency relates, interactive things that you can do with the internet are attained over next-gen television.
Can I get next-gen TV where I live?
So for reasons we'll talk about in a little bit, deployment of this has been very slow. It has expanded significantly over the past few years, and it is now available in the top 25 U.S. television markets following the recent launch in Cleveland. So it has a bigger footprint than when rollout began, but it is certainly not available everywhere yet. It's uneven, and it just depends on where you are. Some cities have dozens of next-gen channels where they're all over the place. Others have none.
What is holding it back?
So this is an interesting question, and one that is asked in a lot of different ways is, what's wrong with the technology? Well, it's not the technology. The obstacle is consumers on this one, and more specifically, televisions. So when we went to version 1 of this, in other words, high definition from standard definition television, there was a big motivation to buy a new TV. It did a lot more. I mean, it had a different ratio. They were larger. They had a much bigger picture. But today, people don't want to replace their televisions again, which is what would be required to get the next tuner for this.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. Their existing TV works perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's what they call a chicken and the egg problem, in that with millions of compatible televisions not being out there, and the televisions people do have not being compatible, broadcasters can't fully transition. Now, this is not the only reason, but this is a big part of it, and part of this is on the broadcasters, which we'll be covering here in a little bit.
I've heard there are some problems with the tuners. Is this true?
So here is a big part of the adoption problem. It's improved a little bit, but this is going extremely slow. There are a couple of manufacturers that now sell external next-gen receivers. So if you remember back when you went to high definition, there was a time where for free from the government, you could get a converter box that would receive the new signals and put them on a analog television. That's not happening now. And if you want a receiver for version 3 or next-gen television, you have to buy it. And some higher-end televisions are just now starting to include these tuners, but it raises the cost. Now, there's some products on the market that you can use for this that do make it a little bit easier. HD Home Run, which is one that I use, which will receive the signal, and then you can basically put it on your network and run it through the network to the televisions in your house, so you're not having to run antennas to each TV, which would not be something I'd be interested in doing. Zapper Box is another one, and there are some other things, but go to the store and try to find a television. Most of what you're going to buy today do not have these tuners yet in them. If they do, they cost a lot more. And
so I have a question.
Problem.
Okay, is this process just too complicated right now for people? Like, they're overwhelmed?
Well, I mean, if you don't need a new television, you're not going to go out and buy one.
Right. But what you just described you did with whatever that was that you were describing, that sounded complicated.
Well, okay, so you're talking about having an external tuner, and yeah, you would have to have another box that you would hook up, to your television. And in its most basic thing, you'd also have to run wires from an antenna to each television in your house, which is very much something that most people are not interested in doing to any extent right now, which is why the ones that broadcasted over the system are easier to use, like HD Home Run, that kind of a thing that saves that. I have an antenna wire running to one box, and then that box connects to my network, and that's how I do it.
Huh. Okay, our next question is, why haven't more TV manufacturers added tuners?
Well, again, basically economics. Additional components increase manufacturing costs. Most consumers aren't asking for it. They don't really want it. They don't know what it is, or they really have no incentive to get it. And broadcasters have now suggested that future rules could require next-gen tuners and new televisions. In fact, they want to sunset the version 1.0. So in other words, it wouldn't work anymore, and you'd have to get the new tuner in order to be able to do this. And right now, the FCC is getting comments. They haven't finalized the issue as of this moment. But there is another big reason, too, that is causing some problems with that, and that is our next question.
What is happening with DRM?
And there you go. This is what the big deal is. So DRM is digital rights management. This term is not unique to televisions. This has to do with digital content providers being able to protect their stuff, whether it be encryption on music, that kind of a thing, or Blu-ray or whatever the case may be. It's the idea so that illegal copies and other things can't be made. So what's happening here is that the broadcasters want to have DRM built into this standard, which it does have at this point. But the problem of it is over-the-air television is supposed to be free, right? And with having this kind of technology and encrypting it, it becomes a problem. In fact, it's the biggest controversy around adoption of next-gen television.
So why are consumers upset?
Well, let's talk about what this is allowed to do, and that will answer that question a little bit in tandem here, because broadcasters are arguing the following. Live sports and other things like that, they want to restrict against unauthorized redistribution. So remember with analog televisions how you had a thing called a VCR and you could record stuff? Yeah. That's what they're wanting to regulate with this. And it basically, since it's interactive television, it allows them to be able to do that. So why are consumers upset? Well, again, over-the-air television is supposed to be free. You buy an antenna, you buy a television, that's the entire experience. But with broadcasters wanting to use encryption, this means you must receive authorization before showing programming. In theory, the viewer should notice. In practice, some have noticed it quite a bit because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with who authorizes this and who doesn't. And the fact that, again, you can't record necessarily unless it's out there and authorized, which means that in order to get that authorization, you have to have a device that can talk to the internet or go through the online with next-gen television to be able to get that authorization before it will show the station.
What is the broadcaster's take on DRM?
Well, again, they're saying that they want to be able to control their content, not necessarily saying that you can't, use it or record it. But as we go down that road, there could be certainly something that comes up that now you have to subscribe to over-the-air television. Whether or not that's allowed is a legal thing. But again, at the end of the day, that's where this might be going.
What can next-gen TV do better?
Well, this is a good thing because it's not like it's all doom and gloom here. And there are different technologies that this will allow to happen. We've talked about this a little bit, but data casting is one of the bigger ones. So instead of broadcast-only television, stations can broadcast data, things like software updates, maps, educational content, emergency information, automotive data, agricultural, public safety, and on and on. So you basically have a wireless data network instead of just the over-the-air television, which is another interesting aside to me because in the European Union, what is now the European Union, in the 80s and 90s, they had data casting, where you could get to a channel with news and that kind of a thing. So this isn't exactly a new technology, but it is a new technology for this. And this is also one of the other things that is controversial is you can get better emergency alerts, right? So let's say there's a tsunami, you can get evacuation routes because it's a digital thing, video instructions, and that type of a thing. But if your channel is encrypted and your device is not authorized to receive it, you're not going to get the emergency release because they're blocked.
Yeah, and that's really the thing. The whole point of having the free television was to make sure that people had access to information, especially emergency information.
And they did do a test on this where they sent out a test alert to verify this. And if the station was not authorized through the DRM, the alert didn't show up. So that is definitely a problem. Now, other improvements, let's move beyond the controversy for a minute because there are good things to this. Audio improvements. They're going to bring things like Dolby Atmos and other decoders and stuff like that, which are kind of a big deal. 4K capable system. The likelihood of stations broadcasting in native 4K anytime soon is probably not a thing that's going to happen, but it is something that we could see happening on down the road.
Okay, so what is coming up with television in the next few years?
Well, I can see us definitely switching standards at some point. I think the idea of forcing a sunset or stations to stop broadcasting on the current standard when they want to do it in the next 2 years would be a problem. A lot of people would react quite negatively to that because you have your really nice 65-inch, whatever OLED television that's exactly what you want, and all of a sudden it won't work with over-the-air television. Now, you're using things like streaming and all of that kind of stuff that would remain unaffected, but you couldn't get the local broadcast television without additional hardware, which you're going to have to buy. And Gretchen, like you were saying, there's a technical step here of being able to set it up and all of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So once we get to a point where these issues are a workaround, the tuners are part of standard televisions, there's some sort of a tuner that you can get that's inexpensive and easy to use. They've figured out the DRM controversy. I think moving ahead, the technology, what it can offer outside of what I would call greedy component with this DRM thing, actually does benefit a lot. So going forward, personal opinion, I don't see us in a situation where I think we're going to be forced into it. Could happen. FCC is still reviewing it, but I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not. Having this as something that will work itself into the standard as we go forward, yeah, that'll be a thing. And one of the other kind of footnotes of all of this with digital television in general is the fact that back in the days of analog television, I could have my little set and I could go anywhere and pretty much pick up a signal. And the idea of mobile over-the-air television, well, I'm not sure of any equipment that would actually work for that. There are some things on the market. I've tried some of them. I've never been able to get one to actually work properly. What I have been able to do is get a digital converter box, set up an antenna. By the way, a digital antenna is the same thing as rabbit ears. They both work just as well.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a set of rabbit ears, that you can use that. If you buy a digital antenna, it's just a modern version of it. But you set that kind of a thing up, and then you can get over-the-air television on a portable television, but you have to have all this other equipment. It's not exactly like you can take that somewhere and just turn it on and go camping and have it work. You would still have to set all of these different things up. Now, in the UK and some other markets, they did try digital portable television. It is a protocol that's been talked about and something that's been researched, but it's never really been implemented because with streaming capability, nobody really wanted it. That's why we don't see it, and that kind of a thing. I don't know. Let me ask you guys some questions. What do you think about all this after hearing this? Do you think this is going to catch on, or do you think it's going to be a problem, or do you think they're going to have to get rid of DRM in order for it to catch on?
I think some people got to get their heads out of their butts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I think that procedure is probably very important here with the broadcasters, and that kind of a thing. I don't know today, and Bill, you might know a little bit more about this, but if you wanted to record like you used to do with a VCR, is that even possible?
I guess you could still use those. What was it called? It used to be for
like a TiVo.
TiVo. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But I don't know if you can still record like for your own personal use other than through like a TiVo service or something like that. Because HDMI has got its own DRM through the cabling and all that it causes it to, if there's anything in the way, it won't work. And by that I mean like another box in the way.
Like if you tried to put your modern equivalent of a VCR on your HDMI, it would simply not function. Presumably you'd be recording in some kind of a digital capacity, but even so, it would still be encrypted. And there are actually different things with that too, because certain things like, say, streaming your PlayStation or Xbox game, that's not encrypted. You can actually record that, and there's methods to do that. But actual copyrighted content simply would not function in that type of a way. And again, it's the idea to prevent piracy. But
so, are you saying that those old VHS tapes that we recorded, recorded our favorite shows, that would include the commercials and all the other weird stuff that goes on, those are now going to be like historical and valuable because they can't ever be reproduced?
Well, the equipment is actually considered retro at this point.
Yeah, but
VCR.
I mean, I'm talking about the actual VCR tapes of those recordings.
Well, it's interesting because the one thing about analog is every time you duplicate it, you lose some of the quality. It's like making a copy of a copy. So that is kind of a natural thing that tends to rope that in a little bit. But they also did have technologies where it would prevent you from copying a copyrighted movie, that kind of a thing. so you had the videotape. If you attempted to make a copy of the tape, it would cause it to lose the sync, is what it did. And so your copy, you wouldn't be able to use it. Now, of course,
but that's not what I'm getting at. I'm talking about the recorded tapes that you stuffed into the TV, set it, recorded your favorite show for an hour or 2 hours, and it's got the whole deal in there.
Right.
That means the commercials and the station breaks and anything else. Those items are now rare and probably historical because you can't do that anymore.
With modern equipment, no.
Yeah.
I suppose with a digital converter box going out to analog, you could record on a VCR with that. Of course, you wouldn't have the quality, the HD quality of the picture or anything because it's downwriting it to work. It also would be 4:3 instead of 16:9, so you would have the wrong ratio for the screen. But it would be technical. But if you're asking what I think you're asking, Gretchen, yes, this would be something that is a unique technology that is not easy to reproduce with modern stuff because it's by design they don't want you to do it.
Because the thing is my mom had some recordings that she did, and she put them in the VCR that we managed to set up, and she was playing them, and I was hearing commercials that I heard in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And it was funny, and it felt like a time capsule. It had like almost historical quality to it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking artistic, but I'm talking about these things actually happened. And it's like it's a documentation of the way life was.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have.
This is true.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I would record shows, while I was in school, or sometimes I was out of the country, and, come back and watch them. And I had a set of tapes that I rotated through all of this. And I recently found one and got it to work again. And it's like what you're talking about. What is it, load? He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And boy, were some of the commercials on that retro.
Do you remember some of the McDonald's special orders don't upset us?
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. That's Burger King.
Yeah.
But the point is you don't hear those commercials anymore. They came up with all these, the where's the beef thing with Wendy's. And I mean, it's like my generation was brainwashed with all these jingles.
Yeah.
It's like
one other thing that they don't like about that kind of equipment is you have control over the fast forward button. So if you don't want to, you can hit your fast forward button, and a lot of that's blocked off too. But it is interesting. This is a completely different topic, but there are actually YouTube channels that specialize in retro commercials, where you can go on and watch hours and hours of retro commercials. It's kind of funny to look at them, and you can tell they were taken off a VHS tape too, because the picture's a little blurry and that kind of a thing. But it definitely is a time past, and we were compiling some of the first gen microcomputer commercials for like Commodore and Atari and things, and some of them were downright funny.
Do you guys remember the agony of defeat? They always showed it during the Olympics. There was this poor man who, I think he was doing one of the ski jump competitions, and he was always featured when they said the agony of defeat. This poor man goes flying. It was awful.
Yeah, I remember that.
We all knew about it.
And as a closing thought, I think the modern day commercials, for the most part, I don't get them. You're looking at it going, what just happened? And there was a lot more creativity, back at that time. And like what you're talking about, you're remembering something from like 30 years ago. And I think a lot of people, like, where's the beef is another one, those kind of things. And in modern era, I'd be hard to come up with a commercial that I even remember now. It's for the same thing. Anyway, that's our time. Until next week, this is User Friendly 2.0, keeping you safe on the cutting edge.
User Friendly 2.0, copyright 2013 to 2026 by User Friendly Media Group, Incorporated. All rights reserved. The content is the opinion of the show's participants and does not necessarily reflect this station or platform. Requests for material use, interviews, disclosures, and other correspondence may be viewed and submitted at userfriendly.show.